The Last Guardian. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the research vessel Hawking, watching the swirling storms of Epsilon VI grow larger as they descended through the atmosphere. The planet's violet clouds churned beneath them, occasionally split by arcs of lightning that illuminated the perpetual twilight. But it wasn't the storms that had brought humanity's finest synorchaeological team to this remote world. It was what lay beneath them. Final approach to the structure, Commander, Lieutenant Park announced from the helm. Getting some unusual energy readings. They're responding to our presence. Sarah nodded, her dark eyes fixed on the horizon, where an angular shape was emerging through the clouds. The structure defied conventional architecture, a towering spire of what appeared to be living crystal, stretching 15 kilometers into the sky. Its faceted surface pulsed with internal light, a beacon that had drawn their attention from orbit. Life support optimal for surface conditions, Dr. Rodriguez reported from her station. But those energy patterns, they're like nothing in our database. The crystalline structure appears to be thinking. As they drew closer, Sarah could see why the previous expedition had retreated without making contact. The spire wasn't just a building, it was alive. Geometric patterns flowed across its surface like circuits made of light, and at its base, massive crystalline formations shifted and realigned themselves like the breathing of some vast entity. All teams, prepare for landing, Sarah announced over the ship's comm. Remember the protocols. We're guests here, and will act accordingly. The Hawking touched down on a platform that materialized beneath them, the crystal surface flowing up to create a perfect docking cradle. Sarah led the first team out, her boots clicking against the crystalline surface. The air was thin but breathable, tasting of ozone, and something older, like dust from the dawn of time. They hadn't taken 3 steps when it appeared. A figure emerged from the spire's base, flowing up from the crystal like a statue coming to life. It towered over them, easily 4 meters tall, its body a complex lattice of transparent crystal and swirling energy. Unlike the mechanical precision of the spire, its form was unmistakably organic, a being of living crystal that radiated both power and intelligence. The rest of the team took involuntary steps backward. Sarah held her ground. I am Serix. The being's voice resonated directly in their minds, carrying with it impressions of vast timescales and deeper meanings than mere words could convey. Last of the crystalline concordat. You stand before the vault of ages. State your purpose. Sarah felt the weight of eons in that voice, a being who had watched civilizations rise and fall like waves on a cosmic shore. But she also sensed something else. Loneliness. 10 million years of solitary vigilance had left their mark, even on a crystalline consciousness. I am Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Sciences Division. She responded, taking a deliberate step forward. We come seeking knowledge and understanding. Xerx's form shifted, internal lights swirling in complex patterns. Many have sought the contents of this vault. Pirates, warlords, self-proclaimed gods, all have been turned away. We're not here to take anything, Sarah said, maintaining eye contact with the swirling energy that seemed to serve as Xerx's consciousness. We're here to learn, to understand, and perhaps, she paused, choosing her words carefully, to help. The crystalline being's lights pulsed in what might have been surprise. Help. I have maintained this vault since before your species learned to make fire. What help could you offer? Sarah smiled. Well, for starters, maybe some company. 10 million years is a long time to stand guard alone. For several long moments, only the howling of Epsilon VI's winds broke the silence. Then, to everyone's astonishment, Xerx's crystalline form emanated a sound that could only be described as laughter. A chiming, resonant tone that made the very air vibrate. Fascinating, the ancient guardian declared. In 10 million years, no one has ever suggested friendship. The being's form shifted, creating what appeared to be a more approachable configuration. Perhaps there is more to your species than my initial scan suggested. Tell me, Commander Sarah Chen, what makes you different from those who came before? Sarah gestured to her team, who were gradually recovering from their initial shock. We bring scientists, scholars, preservationists, not soldiers or thieves. We understand that knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. We're not here to claim or conquer, but to learn and preserve. Pretty words, Xerix responded, but there was an undercurrent of interest in the mental voice. Yet I have heard pretty words before, from beings whose civilizations are now dust. Then test us, Sarah proposed. Give us a chance to prove ourselves worthy of your knowledge. We'll accept your judgment, whatever it may be. The crystalline being's form pulsed with intense light as it considered her words. A test, yes. It has been too long since I properly evaluated a species' potential. Xerix's form expanded, creating a crystalline archway that led into the spire. Come then, Commander. Let us see if humanity is ready for the legacy my people left behind. As Sarah followed the ancient guardian into the spire, she couldn't help but smile. First contact situations were always delicate, but somehow she had a feeling this one was going to be different. Sometimes, she thought, all it takes to bridge a gap of millions of years is a willingness to listen, and the courage to offer friendship to something far beyond human understanding. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change not only humanity's destiny, but the very nature of guardianship itself. The real test was about to begin, and its consequences would echo across the galaxy for millennia to come. Breaking the ice. The interior of the crystalline spire defied human architecture in every conceivable way. Corridors shifted and reformed as they walked, each step revealing new geometric patterns that flowed like liquid mathematics. Sarah found herself grateful for her zero-gravity training. In this place, concepts like up and down seemed more like suggestions than rules. Your heart rate remained steady, Xerix observed as they descended through a spiral of floating platforms. Most organic beings find the fluid geometry distressing. It's beautiful, Sarah replied, watching as light cascaded through the crystalline walls in impossible colors, like walking through living mathematics. She paused at a junction where energy streams converged in a complex dance. Though I admit, my inner engineer is having a minor existential crisis. The crystalline being's form rippled in what Sarah was beginning to recognize as amusement. Your species adapts quickly, an useful trait, given what comes next. Before Sarah could ask for clarification, alarms resonated through the structure, not electronic signals, but rather harmonics that made the very crystals vibrate in mourning. Xerix's form flared with sudden intensity. Perimeter breach, the Guardian announced. Raiders, they picked up your ship's energy signature during landing. The being's crystalline form shifted, becoming more angular, more weapon-like. The vault's automated defenses will engage, but they grow predictable after 10 million years. These raiders have studied them. Sarah activated her comm. Lieutenant Park, status report. 3 ships, Commander. Military-grade stealth systems, but nothing we haven't seen before. They're using Centaurian assault patterns, probably hired guns for someone with deeper pockets. Maintain position and defensive protocols, Sarah ordered. No one plays the hero today. She turned to Xerix. I assume you have a plan. I have maintained this vault against 47,293 attempted incursions. Xerix stated. I will do so again. Make that 47,294, Sarah corrected, pulling up holographic schematics on her wrist computer. But this time, you have help. Lieutenant, patch me through to the Hawking's defensive systems. Xerix's form pulsed with curiosity. Your weapons cannot harm their shielding. Who said anything about weapons? Sarah's fingers danced through the holographic interface. Dr. Rodriguez, remember that crystalline resonance pattern you were studying earlier? The one that matched the spire's thought patterns. Commander, you can't be suggesting. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. Xerix, Sarah turned to the Guardian. Your defenses are predictable because they're perfect, mathematically precise responses to each threat. But sometimes perfection is the problem. What if we introduced a little chaos? The Guardian's crystalline form shifted, internal lights swirling in complex patterns. Explain. Your crystals respond to thought patterns. We broadcast the Hawking's sensor readings through your structure's resonance frequency, creating interference patterns. Not enough to damage anything, but enough to make your defenses look organic, unpredictable, human. For a moment, the ancient being was silent. Then, to Sarah's surprise, Xerix laughed, a sound like wind through crystal caves. In 10 million years, no one has ever suggested making my defenses less perfect. Your species thinks differently, Commander Chen. Perhaps that is not entirely a disadvantage. The raiders had clearly expected the vault's traditional defense patterns. What they got instead was organized chaos. Crystal spires erupted from the ground in seemingly random patterns, following the organic unpredictability of human thought, rather than mathematical precision. Energy beams danced and weaved like aurora borealis, their patterns beautiful and lethal in equal measure. From the Hawking's viewport, Sarah watched as the raiders' formation broke apart, their carefully planned assault crumbling in the face of defenses they couldn't predict. Within minutes, they were retreating, their ships disappearing into Epsilon Vi's violet clouds. Most efficiently done, Xerix observed, their form returning to its more contemplative configuration. Though I notice you chose not to destroy them when the opportunity presented itself. Sometimes the best victory is the one that leaves your opponents alive to spread the word, Sarah replied. Let them tell others that the vault's defenses have evolved. Fear of the unknown is often more effective than fear of the known. An interesting philosophy. Xerix's form shifted, creating what Sarah interpreted as a more relaxed posture. Your solution was unorthodox. You deliberately introduced imperfection to achieve a superior result. This contradicts much of what I have observed about organic intelligence over the millennia. Sarah smiled. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our intelligence. It's our ability to see perfection in imperfection, to find new paths by embracing chaos rather than fighting it. Perhaps Xerix's mental voice carried a new tone, something almost like respect. This is why you are different from those who came before. They sought to overcome their organic nature. You embrace it. As they stood watching the storm clouds swallow the last traces of the raiders' retreat, Sarah felt a shift in their relationship. They had moved beyond mere tolerance into something approaching mutual understanding. The ancient Guardian had witnessed countless species rise and fall, but perhaps humanity offered something new. Not merely the capacity to learn, but the wisdom to know that perfection wasn't always the answer. The vault's inner chambers await, Xerix announced, gesturing toward a newly formed doorway. After today's demonstration, I find myself curious about what other unconventional insights your species might offer. Sarah followed the Guardian into the depths of the spire, knowing that they had passed some form of test, not through power or intelligence, but through humanity's unique ability to find strength in their very imperfection. The real challenges, she suspected, were only beginning, but for the first time in 10 million years, the last Guardian of the crystalline Concordat was facing them with something new: hope. Price of knowledge. Deep within the crystalline spire, Sarah stood before a wall of pure energy that rippled like the surface of a star. Streams of data in unknown languages flowed through the barrier, each symbol holding secrets that predated Earth's first civilizations. But it wasn't the ancient text that held her attention. It was the expression of worry in Xerix's usually stoic crystalline features. The Nexus Consortium approaches, the Guardian announced, their form dimming slightly. They've been watching, waiting. The raiders were merely a test of our defenses. Sarah recognized the name. The consortium represented the galaxy's oldest living civilizations, beings who had achieved technological mastery while humans were still hunting mammoths. Their arrival could only mean one thing: The vault's secrets were far more significant than she had imagined. What exactly are we protecting here, Syrinx? She turned to face her crystalline companion. What's in this vault that would draw their attention? The Guardian's form shifted, creating a holographic display that filled the chamber. Stars and galaxies swirled around them. But something was wrong with the pattern. Dark spaces appeared between the stars, spreading like ink through water. The Void Plague. Syrinx's mental voice carried centuries of weight. A weapon created by my people's ancient enemies. It doesn't destroy matter. It erases it from existence itself. This vault contains the only known cure, and the knowledge of how the plague was stopped. Sarah's blood ran cold, and the consortium wants this knowledge. They believe themselves wise enough to control it. They are not. Syrinx's form crackled with energy. My people learned that lesson at the cost of their civilization. Even containing the cure is dangerous. Reality itself rejects its presence. Alarms resonated through the structure again, but different from before. These weren't the sharp warnings of combat. They were deep, resonant tones that made Sarah's bones ache. Above them, the vault's crystalline ceiling began to pulse with crimson light. They're here. Syrinx's voice carried a note of resignation. 3 consortium motherships. Their technology nearly matches what my people possessed. The vault's defenses won't hold for long. Sarah's mind raced. The consortium's reputation for technological superiority was well earned, but they had one critical weakness: arrogance. Centuries of dominance had made them predictable. Can you link me to their communication frequency? She asked, an idea forming. They will not negotiate, Commander Chen. They believe their right to this knowledge supersedes all other concerns. Who said anything about negotiating? Sarah grinned. Lieutenant Park, remember that chaos theory we applied to the defense systems. Time to think bigger. Over the next few minutes, Sarah outlined her plan. It was audacious, potentially suicidal, and completely human in its approach to the problem. Syrinx listened with growing fascination as the commander explained how they would turn the consortium's own perfection against them. You propose to create a cascading resonance pattern between the vault's crystals and their ship's energy shields, the Guardian summarized. The feedback loop would make their own defensive systems unpredictable. Better. Sarah's eyes gleamed. We'll make them think they're winning first. Let them penetrate the outer defenses, get their ships nice and close. Then we show them why perfection can be a weakness. The battle that followed would be discussed in galactic scientific circles for centuries. The consortium's ships, each a masterpiece of engineering perfection, found their carefully calibrated systems thrown into chaos by the vault's seemingly erratic defense patterns. Their shields, designed to be impenetrable, became unpredictable conduits for energy feedback loops they couldn't control. Impossible, the consortium commander's voice crackled through their communication system. Our calculations were perfect. Our approach was flawless. That's your problem, Sarah responded, watching as the massive ships struggled against the chaos their own systems were creating. You're so focused on perfection, you've forgotten how to adapt. Sometimes the best solution isn't the perfect one. It's the one that works. The consortium ships were forced to retreat, their perfect formations broken, their confidence shattered by the realization that their technological superiority had been turned against them by a species they had considered primitive. In the aftermath, as the vault's crystals slowly returned to their normal patterns, Syrinx turned to Sarah. You understand now why this knowledge must be protected, why it cannot fall into hands that believe themselves wise enough to control it. Sarah nodded, looking at the flowing data streams with new respect. Some knowledge isn't about power, it's about responsibility. About understanding when not to use what you know. Yes. Syrinx's form brightened. This is why your species continues to surprise me, Commander Chen. You possess the wisdom to recognize that true strength often lies in restraint. But their victory had come with a price. The consortium's attack had destabilized portions of the vault's ancient containment systems. Warning signals pulsed through the crystalline walls, Speaking of failing seals and weakening barriers, the vault's primary containment field is degrading, Xerix announced, their tone grave. The knowledge is secure, but the cure itself, its presence strains against the fabric of reality. Without the combined power of my people to maintain the seals. Sarah stepped forward, placing her hand against the crystalline wall. Through the living crystal, she could feel the vibrations of power barely contained. Then maybe it's time for your people to have some help. Humanity's got pretty good at fixing impossible problems. The Guardian's form shifted, internal lights swirling in complex patterns of consideration. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of the vault, but possibly the nature of reality itself. And somehow, humanity had placed itself at the center of it all, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through the simple willingness to try the impossible. Legacy of stars. The vault's inner sanctum pulsed with barely contained power. Reality itself seemed to bend around the containment field's edges, creating prismatic distortions in the air. Dr. Rodriguez's instruments were reporting readings that defied the laws of physics, while Lieutenant Park's security systems were detecting spatial anomalies throughout the structure. The original containment system, Xerix explained, their crystalline form resonating with the failing barriers, was powered by the combined consciousness of 10,000 of my people. Now, only I remain. Sarah studied the ancient technology before them. The containment field was a masterpiece of engineering, but it had been designed to work with the unique properties of crystalline consciousness. Could your people's technology interface with other forms of energy? Theoretically, Rodriguez's voice carried both excitement and concern. But Commander, we'd be linking human technology directly to systems that predate our species. The power requirements alone would strain our fusion cores to their limits. Better than watching reality tear itself apart. Sarah turned to Xerix. Your people designed this system to work with crystalline consciousness. But consciousness is consciousness, whether it's stored in crystal or carbon or quantum circuits. The patterns are what matter, not the medium. The Guardian's form shifted, internal lights swirling in complex calculations. Your logic is not entirely unsound, but the interface would require a direct neural connection. No organic being has ever attempted such a link with our technology. Good thing I've got experience with impossible situations. Sarah managed a grim smile. How long until total containment failure? Hours, at most. Xerix's voice carried the weight of millennia. Commander Chen, Sarah, what you propose is incredibly dangerous. The neural load could overwhelm your consciousness. And if we do nothing, we lose everything. Sarah began interfacing her neural implants with the vault systems. Sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one at all. The next few hours were a blur of activity. The Hawking's crew worked to modify their quantum arrays, creating an interface between human technology and the ancient crystalline systems. Dr. Rodriguez's team calculated power requirements and neural load parameters, while Lieutenant Park prepared emergency protocols in case something went wrong. When everything was ready, Sarah stood before the containment field's main interface. Crystal nodes extended from the walls, ready to link with her neural implants. The air crackled with energy, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Last chance to reconsider, Xerix warned. The neural load will be significant. Sarah took a deep breath. When humanity first reached for the stars, we knew we'd find things we couldn't understand. But we went anyway because not knowing, not trying, was worse than any risk. She connected the first neural link. We're ready. The initial connection felt like fire in her mind. Alien consciousness patterns flooded her neural pathways as the vault's systems recognized her presence. Through the link, she could sense Xerix's vast awareness, the weight of millions of years of guardianship compressed into pure information. Neural patterns stabilizing. Rodriguez reported, her voice seeming to come from very far away. Quantum arrays online. Power output at 80% and holding. Sarah pushed through the pain, forcing her consciousness to adapt to the alien patterns. Slowly, the fire in her mind became a manageable burn. Through her neural link, she could see the containment field structure, not just its physical form, but the very mathematics that held it together. The field is responding. Xerx's voice merged with the data stream in her mind. Your neural patterns, they're adapting to the system faster than should be possible. Human brains, Sarah managed through gritted teeth, are good at making new connections. We just need to show them how. Together, they began rebuilding the containment field. Xerx's ancient knowledge combined with human adaptability and the raw processing power of quantum computers created something entirely new, a hybrid system that drew strength from both technologies. The vault's crystals sang with renewed energy as the containment field stabilized. Reality smoothed itself out, the spatial distortions fading as the cure's presence was properly contained once more. But something else was happening too, something unexpected. The neural interface. Xerx observed with what sounded like awe. It's not just controlling the containment field. It's evolving, adapting. Your consciousness is teaching our technology how to change. Through the neural link, Sarah could see it too. The rigid patterns of crystalline technology were learning from human neural plasticity, creating new configurations that neither civilization could have developed alone. It wasn't just a containment system anymore. It was becoming a bridge between two fundamentally different approaches to understanding the universe. Maybe that's what both our species needed, Sarah said, her consciousness expanding through the hybrid network. Not to overcome our limitations, but to find ways to complement each other's strengths. As the new containment field hummed with stable power, Sarah realized they had done more than just prevent a catastrophe. They had proven that the gap between organic and crystalline intelligence could be bridged, that the future might lie not in perfection, but in the harmony of different approaches working together. The price of knowledge, she realized, wasn't just in protecting it. It was in knowing how to use it to bring people together, even across the vast gulf of millions of years and fundamentally different forms of consciousness. And humanity, with its unique ability to adapt and connect, might just be the key to sharing that knowledge safely with the galaxy. New Guardians. 1 month after the containment crisis, the crystalline spire of Epsilon VI had changed. Human quantum processors now interfaced seamlessly with ancient crystal matrices, creating patterns of light and energy that represented a perfect fusion of both technologies. But the biggest changes weren't in the technology. They were in the ideas it represented. Sarah stood in the vault's central chamber, watching as teams of human scientists worked alongside newly awakened crystalline interfaces. The hybrid neural network she and Xerx had created had done more than stabilize the containment field. It had opened up new possibilities for communication between organic and crystalline intelligence. The consortium has been suspiciously quiet, Lieutenant Park reported, checking the latest security scans. Our success seems to have given them pause. Success often breeds caution in the old ones, Xerx observed, their form shifting through complex patterns of light. They must now reevaluate millennia of assumptions about younger species. Sarah smiled, remembering the messages they'd received from across the galaxy. News of their achievement had spread quickly, challenging long-held beliefs about technological advancement and species cooperation. The sight of humanity working as equals with an ancient guardian had sent shockwaves through galactic society. We've received another 100 applications from research institutions across Earth, Dr. Rodriguez announced, scrolling through her datapad. Everyone wants to be part of the knowledge exchange program. Knowledge exchange, Sarah mused, looking at the flowing data streams that now carried information in both ancient and human formats. Not just preservation anymore. A necessary evolution. Xerx's mental voice carried new warmth. My people believed in perfect preservation, but perfection can become stagnation. Your species has shown us a different path, one of growth through shared understanding. The vault had become more than a repository of dangerous secrets. Under the combined guardianship of human and crystalline intelligence, It was becoming a center of learning where the wisdom of the ancients could be safely studied and understood. The cure for the void plague remained secured, but the principles behind its containment were teaching them new ways to manipulate reality itself. The first joint research team made a breakthrough this morning. Dr. Rodriguez reported excitedly. They found a way to adapt crystalline computing principles to organic neural networks. The medical implications alone are revolutionary, and our crystalline archives have begun incorporating human cognitive patterns. Added. The efficiency improvements are unprecedented. Your species' talent for creating new neural pathways has taught our systems to evolve. Sarah approached the central interface where she had first linked her consciousness to the vault's systems. The neural pathways they had created still hummed with power, but now they carried the combined knowledge of two civilizations separated by millions of years. You know, she said to Xerix, when I first volunteered for this mission, everyone said I was crazy. First contact with an ancient guardian, they said. It'll never work, but they were thinking about it all wrong. How so? Xerix's form shifted with curiosity. They thought it was about proving ourselves worthy of ancient knowledge. But it was never about worthiness. It was about understanding that every civilization, no matter how advanced, has something to learn and something to teach. The Guardian's crystalline form brightened, a wisdom that escaped even my people, perhaps. We sought to preserve knowledge perfectly, unchanging through the ages. But knowledge, like consciousness itself, must grow to remain alive. Around them, the vault hummed with the combined efforts of human and crystalline intelligence working in harmony. Research teams were making discoveries that neither civilization could have achieved alone. The rigid perfection of crystalline technology was learning to adapt and grow, while human innovation was being tempered by ancient wisdom. The consortium will return eventually, Lieutenant Park reminded them. They're not known for giving up easily. Let them come, Sarah replied confidently. They'll find something different this time, not just defenses, but a new kind of strength, the strength of two civilizations working as one. Xerix's form pulsed in agreement. Perhaps that is why your species was meant to find this place, not to inherit our legacy, but to help us create a new one. As if in response to the Guardian's words, the vault's crystals sang with harmonies of both ancient power and new possibilities. The cure remained safely contained, but its containment was no longer a burden borne alone. Instead, it had become a symbol of what could be achieved when different forms of consciousness learned to work together. You know what the best part is? Sarah asked, watching a team of human scientists excitedly discussing theory with a crystalline interface. We're just getting started. Every discovery leads to new questions. Every solution opens up new possibilities. Indeed. Xerix agreed, their mental voice carrying both amusement and pride. Though I must admit, after 10 million years of perfect solitude, I find myself rather enjoying the chaos your species brings. The Vault of Ages had been transformed from a lonely outpost guarding dangerous knowledge into a beacon of cooperation and discovery. The legacy of the crystalline Concordat lived on, not as a static monument to past glory, but as a living testament to the power of combining ancient wisdom with new perspectives. And as Sarah Chen looked out over what they had built together, she knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by conquering or demanding, but by offering friendship and understanding to beings beyond their comprehension. In doing so, they had helped create something entirely new, a future where the boundaries between ancient and modern, organic and crystalline, perfect and evolving, began to fade away into something greater than the sum of its parts.